Hello there, my name is Jacqueline Silvis, and my topic is on the performance of passion plays in medieval Europe. Passion plays were dramatized performances that depicted what Christ went through: his trial, suffering, and death. The church originally hated theater before medieval time. They hated theater and they banned it. But then after they realized it could be useful for their highly illiterate population, they made it into something that can teach people about God and make them understand more through visual information and dialogue. They were notably very anti-Semitic plays, since Jews were the ones that Christians gave the blame for the death of Christ. This doesn't really make sense because Jews during this time were not the same Jews back when Christ was around. Racism. What was that? Okay. However, since people saw these plays, it made them think that Jewish people were the problem, since they were the killers of God. Jewish people were criticized and even assaulted, mainly during Holy Week. Because of this, the performances were played on wagons that were stationed in the city center and moved around from to different spots throughout the days. This type of theater lasted a long time. Passion plays. There is a specific city that still performs these type of theaters to this day, because they made it a vow that if death due to the bubonic plague stopped, they would continue to do this play once every 10 years, and it's ongoing. The town is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Obermergau in Germany. Since it did stop, they did in fact continue to do the play. So this image is a good example of what a passion play during medieval times would have looked like. Here is another example of medieval theater. In this depiction, you can see that the actors were wearing costumes so that watching the play is easier to understand, since costume each person has meaning. Little devils. And this is a recent picture that shows a passion play being performed now. It's a little different than what it looked like before, since we now have modern technology at our disposal. This is a different picture of a recent play. This is about the crucifixion of Christ. Okay. The intended audience for this performance, well, it was everyone, since back in the day they did it in the open where everyone could see. They wanted this performance to be seen by as many people as possible. It's getting hard to see. The Christians always believed that people who were not Christian needed to be saved and brought to their side, and that they needed to see and understand their way of thinking in order for them to go to heaven. And since there was this type of theater during this time due to the rise of Christianity, this was really one of the only ways people could entertain themselves. This made a lot of people go and see the plays that were put up by the church, which obviously made more people Christians, which was their goal. As I said before, most of the population during this time was illiterate, which is why theater was brought back, because they could not just publish newspaper or books, since most people couldn't read them. Okay, the reason that passion plays were such a big thing during this time was that it was the reawakening of theater, since it was last banned by the church because they deemed it as a sin. Another big reason is because the fall of the Roman Empire, which leads to the rise of Christianity. This means that the only religion that was recognized at the time in Europe was Christianity. This meant that the public had to be lectured on the Bible and its teachings in order to implement this religion into society a little better than it had been. Religious institutions at the time soon became wealthy due to the state allowing a big budget for religious activities. Having a theater that would lecture people made a lot of sense, which is why it was allowed, but mainly for religious purposes. The relevance of passion plays in medieval Europe for this class is that we study theater and performances. What better way to do that than to go back in time and look at the history of theater? This way we get a better understanding of how it started, what it went through, and the changes it has made up until now. Theater during the medieval time was mainly religious, but it resembles theater today, with the props they used, how the actors acted, and how sometimes to get to the point across, they had to use fiction. It relates to our readings on theater, performance, and audience, because to make the play worthwhile, they needed an audience to be watching them and paying attention. Another way passion plays relates to this class's topics is with public space. Passion plays were performed in city centers. This just goes to show that theater can really be performed anywhere if given enough space. This is why the center was utilized, because a lot of people were able to fit in the center and watch the play that was happening on a cart that can move from place to place as needed. Violence in theater was a topic we discussed in class, and passion plays used violence to get a better visual representation of what was going on during Christ's trial and the violence he endured. Something else we discussed in class was protests. Passion plays could be slightly considered a protest, since they were very anti-Semitic and often demonstrated how much they disliked Jews, which made the rest of the public dislike them as well, which is sort of the whole idea of a protest, or like changing people's views, okay. It was sort of like a protest against Jews. Sadly, it worked because Jews were heavily hated during this time. Since women were not allowed to act during this time, men had to act the part of women, which brings up another topic we discussed in class, gender. Overall, passion plays are heavily intertwined with the topics we discussed in this course. The relevance passion plays may have on theater studies now is that we can see where humans in history started to mobilize theater, since it is known that in medieval times, carts were used to better move around and spread Christianity throughout Europe. Thank you.